So I'll be sharing my experience about the scoping review, which is part of my PhD study, and is seeking to map the existing clinical governance studies in low and middle income countries, given that clinical governance is well reported in many high income countries, but this is not the case for low and middle income countries. So we started off by identifying key documents in high income countries, which served as a framework. Those key documents fed into a conceptual framework development. We then used the conceptual framework that was developed, also provided a potential scope for the review. I will not be able to go into details about the conceptual framework, but we try to explore some of the key concepts that could influence a clinical governance process. In developing a scoping review question, we carried out a preliminary review using Google search. Given that a scoping review tends to use a broad scope in trying to find evidence, we set out to include all sources of evidence, and that's because Google search has a variety of sources of evidence. We then expanded our search engine to Google Scholar. Sometimes we have difficulty in finding a particular article or report. Then we also explored the visibility of additional sources of evidence, given that clinical governance is related to quality improvement, and because many low and middle income countries are starting to introduce reforms towards universal health coverage, we tend to look into some of these learning sites, like the Joint Learning Network. We also identified researchers that are involved in clinical governance in some settings, such as Thailand. Our review question went through various stages of revision, but we came up with this scoping review question on what is known from existing literature about clinical governance in low and middle income countries, and to what extent are the predetermined elements of clinical governance based on our conceptual framework are articulated or institutionalized in those settings. Going through the Google search, we saw that it would be difficult to take a systematic approach. So we decided we had some issues that needed to be resolved going forward, such as identifying databases that could help us identify relevant literatures, the start date of our search, and also our search strategy and terms. We are in collaboration with the Warwick University through a senior colleague, and she has been giving support in conceptualizing this study. We also had to collaborate with librarians in the University of Witwatersrand, where we are at, just to get a sense about how to work through the search strategy issues. So because we saw that lots of outputs are coming up and the process is becoming continuous, we needed to develop a review protocol, a search log, and minutes to document our process. Our search strategy was informed by some criteria. Because clinical governance is relatively new in low and middle income countries, we thought that it might not be explicit in some of the articles. And again, that, for example, in PubMed, clinical governance has only been indexed in 2009. So we needed to include synonyms like quality improvement, total quality improvement, quality assurance, and some other synonyms. We also needed to start our search from 2000, because that was the year when WHO initiated or articulated clinical governance as a priority. We also developed an inclusion and exclusion criteria, which took a two-stage format. Based on our preliminary results, after our search and using our search strategy, we had over 4,000 references that was exported to a systematic review platform called Covidence. We were able to exclude 187 duplicates. During the title and abstract screening stage, we still had over 4,500 articles that needed to be screened. At this stage, we needed to expand our team because it's quite hard to get through 4,500 articles. So we needed to include more reviewers. Then during at the full text screening stage, we had over almost 300 full text articles. And at this stage, we had to pause because we thought that over almost 300 articles is a lot to extract data from. So at this stage, we decided to bring other exclusion criteria forward. So we did a preliminary review of some of those articles, and from that stage, we were able to come up with new exclusion criteria. So the second stage of our exclusion criteria provided a broad lens to quality improvement, because it gives ideas of categories of approaches used in quality improvement broadly, but it does not actually explain some of the clinical governance processes. So we planning to use this set of articles as conceptual background for our study, because it gives us an idea of some of the other approaches used in clinical, in quality improvement. But we have 61 studies that met our inclusion criteria, and these 61 studies are awaiting extraction and analysis. The keynote from the process so far is that there is need to expand the number of people, the reviewers, if you have a large number of outputs. We had to make decision about how to balance between getting a large scope of mapping of the topic in question, and also getting detailed information about what we're trying to achieve. We also saw that the journey has been quite long. It's been 2 years since we started the scoping. And we try to ask ourselves every time whether we're still doing a scoping review. And the answer is yes, because even though the quality improvement synonyms broadened our output, we had opportunity to pause and reflect about how to make decisions going forward. We've been able to exclude some of our sources of evidence which we felt would not enrich the study. We see the process as quite flexible because we are not constrained by the fact that we have to comply with the quality assessment processes which a conventional systematic review approach will use. Although we foresee the fact that because we have different types of methods in the paper that has been selected. We need to make decisions about how to analyze those different types of methods. If our questions has changed, we through the process we have to revise our question, given the fact that we've excluded some categories of articles. We know, because now we are not focusing on one element of equality improvement process. And we thought that perhaps maybe what we would have done differently is to maybe to have done other rounds of pilots, so that maybe we could revise our search strategy, and sometimes, and also the databases we used, some of them are overlapping. But in all, we see the process as quite iterative. There is need for an effective communication strategy between co-reviewers in order to standardize our approach to the review. So sometimes we use emails and WhatsApp group to get messages across. These are my co-reviewers who always wear their thinking cap and the glowing light all the time, and some references.